Welcome, everyone. Hi, how are you out there? Welcome to The View from the Top. I'm Meredith Morris, and I have been filling in. Hey, Ray, I have been filling in for the wonderful Brian Friedman. And I am so happy to announce that Brian has recovered very, very well, and he will be back next week. So today is my last day filling in for him, and I'm so excited because we have a great show. Remember, please write in the comments. Let me know where you're from. Hit the heart button, hit the like button. We really want you to be involved in the show, and we're so glad that you're here. So just to tell you what we're talking about today, I'm very excited. We have the amazing Emma from Oracle with us today, and we're going to be talking about boundaries and balance, how Oracle manages international remote work safely. It is such an incredible story, and I can't wait for Emma to share her information. Also, just note that you can watch us on YouTube, you can watch us on Spotify, and of course on LinkedIn. If anybody is needing their CPE credits, because I know I do, we do have credits from WERC, our friends at WERC, and also Rocket Mortgage. So if you carry your SHRM certification, your HRCI, or your WERC, we've got credits for you. So thank you again to Rocket Mortgage and WERC. All right, next week's show. So we're going to be talking about predictability meets flexibility. We have Karen Hale with Indeed that's going to be joining us. So she's going to be sharing how Indeed transformed their relocation and managed budget program. That should be a really good show, and we hope that you decide to join us for that. I'm very, very excited. We also have Lori Ryan with us today, and we've got the incredible Julia Onslow-Cole with Fragments going to be doing another immigration update. So be involved, write in the comments. Let's see who's out there. And we're going to go ahead and get started with breaking news. We always have so much great stuff happening in our industry. So let's see what's going on out there. All right. Well, congratulations to everybody out there that has started a new role or moved to a new position. And if any of you have like positions that you're hiring for, please send them to us. We would love that. And if you didn't notice, Benevo is actually hiring for someone here in the U.S. To work with myself and Lori. So let us know if you're interested. We certainly would love to talk to you. All right. So to keep our show rolling today and everybody on the edge of their seat, we are going to have Miss Julia Onslow-Cole. She's going to do our immigration update. Always good information. Oh, Julia, there you are. I was like, where'd Julia go? Oh no, am I going to have to do the immigration update? Because I don't think it would be on point.
So thanks, Meredith. Thank you.
Here.
So I'm going to talk about adjustment of status, and that's because I was in New York last week with Eddie Raleigh and lots of lovely people that watch Benevo. And this was a big topic of conversation in Washington and in, well, all over the US. So I'm just going to say a few words about it. So what happened is that in the US holiday, just a week or two ago, I think it's a week ago,
Mhm.
USCIS issued a clarification of policy memo regarding the discretionary nature of adjustment of status. So adjustment of status is the process whereby you can apply for lawful permanent residence, a green card,
Right.
without having to leave the US and going to your home country and then applying through a visa processing through the consulate. And obviously, if you have to do that, if you have to apply through a consulate processing, that means you have to physically leave. That could be quite difficult if you're working. The consular processing, as we know from previous broadcasts, is actually quite sporadic and can take a long time. And so when this guidance was issued, on the Friday before the holiday, there was a lot of very worried people. There was a lot of panic, and it was very similar to the situation when there was this sudden announcement of the $100,000 fee for H-1B. In fact, one of my friends, her son, one of my English friends, her son was getting married in the US, and she's just been there for a wedding. And her son works in the tech industry, is very clever, and he's married a very lovely US citizen. And she was ringing me with absolute floods of tears saying, oh my goodness, he's so panicked. Luckily, I'm on speed dial to Eddie, and he said, look, in his circumstances, I don't think there's anything to worry about. But it just really showed me close up how people are really panicking about this. So I think the key point to say is that AOS applications remain available. And not everyone has to leave. It's a matter of discretion. And the real change is that you have to show why you should be allowed to change your status in country, why you shouldn't have to leave and go to a consulate. So we have had subsequent USCIS and DHS statements, and they've indicated that if you're a rule follower, if you're highly paid, you're working for the economic benefit of the US, and it's in the national interest of the US, then you should be fine. But these interventions are not the same as actually seeing some written field guidance, which I think we'd all like to see.
Yeah.
But at the moment, the guidance does require each adjudicator to decide each case on its merits, and then they have to decide, do I exercise discretion or not? And that means the application is going to be scrutinized much more closely, and it really means that you have to prove your case. You have to say why you shouldn't be forced to make an application at consular processing abroad. So what you need to do is make it easy for the officer to exercise his discretion. And you have to give a very clear and concise reasoning as to why discretion should be issued very favourably in your case. So, for example, if you have a very straightforward H-1B L1 case to a green card, you could say, well, I'm here. I'm doing things for the economic benefit of the US. It's really important work. I've been here lawfully throughout. I've got no non-compliance on my tax or my immigration. There's no negative factors in my case. And additionally, I have family issues. I don't want to leave my family, or I've got medical issues, or I'm in a really important project, which means I have to stay in the US, and this would all be very unreasonably burdensome. And then for higher risk cases, so if you have, for example, an arrest or a conviction or anything like that, even if it was years ago, it still makes your case a much higher risk. Then you need to develop your arguments more. So obviously there's lots of other questions about what you do if you're already in the process or whatever, but I hope that's helpful as a very sort of high level guidance, and I hope that's sort of quite reassuring.
Yeah, no, we we saw with our Changemaker group. I mean, it was explosive. So I can't even
Mm.
imagine, like, where you were in New York, the conversations that were being had, and how organizations, again, are trying to deal with yet another change,
Yes.
another process, because then it comes down to, getting into your talent, really managing that pool of, employees that you have, and making sure that all of them are taken care of. And then how do you deal with the ones that are that higher risk, that fall in that category, that maybe back
Yes.
when they were 18 they did something
Mm.
silly and
Mm.
got in trouble, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And it is surprising, when we're all older, that suddenly, when you look back and actually there has been a bit of an incident in someone's life, and sometimes the more senior they are and the older they are, there's more likely that there is something just a little bit untoward, and it's all of these things that make the application more complex.
So what's the best advice you're giving to your
Well,
clients?
really, just what I said, really, for those that haven't made the application, to, make sure that they do set out reasons why, discretion should be exercised. And if there are things like that, explaining those as well.
Yeah. Julia, again, incredible. Love these updates. I know our audience does. Hit the heart button, hit the like button. We appreciate you spending time with us every week and bringing such valuable information. So thank you so much. And I've enjoyed working with you. I'm sure it won't be my last time, but
Oh, no, no, definitely not. No, it's lovely working with you. Okay,
absolutely. Thank you again, Julia. So
bye.
excited. Thank you. All right. And now we have got an incredible update from our own Lori Ryan. So let's look forward to that and see what Lori's sharing with us today.
I love the music from the videos. I'm like bopping around.
I
So
can see that, Lori. I'm surprised you didn't make an AI video to introduce yourself with yourself singing.
next time, next time. It's just so fun. It's fun.
I love it. Well, you have some updates for our audience out there today. Hit the heart button, hit the like button. Let's see what you got going on, Lori, because I'm excited. I got to see a little bit of it, but let's see what's happening.
First off, hey, I'm just so excited to be here. And today I get to take you inside the Benevo platform in the role of a global mobility person, right? As if you're logging into the platform. All right. So hang tight. Oh, perfect. Now you can see it, right? And what we're going to talk about today is how Benevo can support you at the micro level, from daily work and operational efficiency to the macro level, right? The high level strategy and compliance stuff, right? All of it important. And what I think I want to talk about as we go through the platform today is how our platform evolves is by listening, getting feedback directly from our clients and also our change makers. We have these discussions. They're like, this is difficult or this is time consuming. What ideas do you have? And together we are building, we're innovating together because we don't want to build things that we just think, hey, we think this will be useful. We know we're hearing it directly. All right. So who wants to get started?
Yeah,
This.
Lori, hey,
Yeah.
before you get started, just a real quick, because a lot of
Yeah.
people probably don't know what change makers are.
Oh,
Why don't you share what the change maker program is for some of our audience members who may not be a change maker? You do have to be a corporate global mobility professional or corporate global HR. But Lori, you want to share a little bit about that, and then let's see what you got going on.
absolutely. We have what we call our group of change makers, and we get together quarterly, I think, for an hour, and we have different topics that we discuss. And actually, the topic that's coming up in our feature topic for today came from a change maker discussion and what we learned from talking to each other. Additionally, these change makers have their own LinkedIn groups or ways to communicate. So, in terms of what Julia just talked about, everybody was like, oh my gosh, this news just dropped, like she said. The Friday before a holiday weekend, what do? Everybody's nervous or anxious. Do we send memos? What do we do? And it's a way really to collaborate in real time, get opinions from what others are doing as well. And they help us drive what happens in our product.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Well, let's get into it. Let's see what's going on here. Lori, what are you showing us today?
When you log into the platform from the global mobility view, this is what you'll see. And if I hover over here, what we're looking at here is called My Desk, because this came about hearing from everybody how daily work gets messy, right? Information gets buried in individual email boxes or scattered across personal drives. And My Desk, what this does is centralize everything so that if someone goes on leave, someone gets sick, takes a vacation, there's team turnover, anyone can immediately pick up where they left off. Let's look now. This is how it is filtered, right? So let's say I need to cover for Meredith because she's busy hosting a show today. I could go in and I could filter by her name. I'm going to click here to apply, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Meredith has this task that she needs to do today. This way, she doesn't have to worry about it. I can come in here. I can reassign this to myself. Whoop, if I could spell my name, that'd be great. And take over. And then also, I could then mark the task if I finish it as done. Or I could leave comments or attach something or even add a link with more information. So this is a great way to manage work within teams. Now, you can also filter, this is a fun one, by task status. So for instance, maybe you want to look at anything that's blocked. What's out of your control that you may need to escalate or get involved with? And you can also filter by employee. So I know that I'm working on a file, Bad Bunny. Let's see what's happening with Bad Bunny. I will need to change the owner to assign to me. And I'm going to click apply. And here it gives me a list of all the tasks that are currently needing to be done for Bad Bunny. I can look at the status, the due date. You can see Bad Bunny, and I added the owner here on the left, so you can also adjust your columns. Now, you probably wonder, Lori, how did these tasks get here, right? There are a couple ways this can happen. You can add tasks manually, subject, description, and then you can decide, is this task case specific, right? Maybe it's tied to Bad Bunny's file. However, maybe it's a general task like run the payroll report or send something to finance, the budget or costs. You can track all of these here and who's responsible for it to help ensure that nothing falls between the cracks. Now, adding tasks, that seems pretty manual, right? And that is why most of our clients choose to have these tasks auto-generate, especially at that case level, right? So when that file is initiated, the tasks are automatically there. You're not like having to come in and fill out all those fields. And not only can we customize these tasks for your specific workflows at a client level, we can do it by policy. We can do it by country. We can do it by level, right? Like you may not have the same task for a VIP that's moving to Germany as an intern moving within the US, right? But again, if you need to manually add a task later, you can. The real, as I was going through everything, what I thought about is the value is how many people have like information stuck in their heads, right? Or processes or what needs to be done. This gets those standard procedures captured and available this way too. If you bring on someone new, it can help them know what to do next and what not to skip and so forth. So let me open one for you. For instance, confirm employment rules. You can decide what goes in these descriptions or what's beneficial. You can add links. You can see if there's a predecessor, what needs to be completed first, or the successor, what needs to be completed after. Again, you can add those comments, and then when you're done, you can click right there and mark it as done. And then you can, again, track everything that's coming up.
That's incredible. I mean, how amazing that, this type of technology is automating these workflows, really looking at every intricate detail. When you're talking about an employee that's relocating, and you're talking about a work from anywhere or self-initiated, whatever that looks like from the populations, that you would have that visibility and be able to streamline that functionality. Lori, that was great. What are you showing us now? Hey, what's this?
Well, my thought is that not everybody who's in this tool is responsible for actually executing the tasks, right? Some people just want to know what's going on, right? You just, and that's what this
That's me.
dashboard was created for, right? How many blocked or tasks do we have? What's causing those blocks? How long is it taking people to do their tasks? This kind of data is also really important because you might find patterns in what's causing things to be blocked, or areas or ways that you can streamline in the future. So again, this is more the macro level of why tasks are valuable. And speaking of macro level, I'm really excited now to transition to our immigration hub. And I don't know if you looked at some of those tasks under like Bad Bunny. Like immigration was a huge piece of it. Immigration feasibility, all of that, that stems from even just getting a case started before you even make an offer. So here's where we shift here. And a lot of this too is tied to reporting and data. And I'm going to start with our immigration scorecard. And what we think of this immigration hub as, it's like your evolving insurance policy against, compliance failures. You know what I mean?
Right.
Expired visas and all of this stuff. And again, you don't have to be relocating for this immigration hub to be valuable, right? Foreign local hires, any sponsored workers. This type of data can keep things from going off the rails and help you avoid unexpected legal fees and so forth. So in this scorecard, right, you can see your number of cases initiated, in progress, and we also know that many people have multiple immigration providers, right? So this way they can kind of either look at it as a whole, or they could look at it by provider. And the other key thing that we are hearing from folks too is that sometimes they want to be able to look at things by project, right? How are things moving forward for this project? So you can also filter it by project. So you can see cases initiated and some of this data here. Let me scroll down to make this easier to see. You can see the number of visa expirations the next 6 months. And here's what we like to call like the pizza tracker. I think of it as like my luggage. What's happening with the luggage? How long am I going to have to wait when I get to that baggage claim? But this is very valuable because this is your accountability piece. And this came to be, we had a client, right? They were considering changing their immigration provider, but now they had the data to bring back to their immigration provider about those SLAs and how they were doing. And it was like easy to spot and see. And with that data, the immigration provider stepped it up. Things got better. They improved. The employee experience got better. And they ultimately didn't need to change providers. So this information became incredibly valuable, not only from the SLA perspective, but if you notice this first column here, this is your expectation setting, right? This is how you can tell employees, hey, this step should take this longer. And also the business. What does this do? This cuts down on friction. This cuts down on noise. This cuts down on emails. This frees up your time to focus on strategy and what matters most.
That's crazy. I love that. So it's tools to keep the team proactive, which is so very helpful, and notifications, updates, and it keeps the employee informed too. So there's transparency with the employee as well, right?
You talked about one of the key things of this is needing a second set of eyes. I can't tell you how many people who I talk to, they're stressed out about missing something. All of a sudden you have a system that's checking all of these dates and alerting you, and you get to decide when you get alerted and what triggers those notifications, again, to be proactive. And just think, maybe you get alerted, you just might be setting up a new task for someone.
That's true. Oh my gosh, Lori, that was crazy. just the way that this technology moves and you and I both, we sit through it, there are always new things popping up, but this is great.
It's the key intelligence layer, again, that keeps you logging into one platform as opposed to having to go multiple places to know what's happening and if you have any risk that could, impact a project, impact any
proactive mobility.
That's what we're talking about.
Proactive mobility. Lori, that was incredible. Thank you for sharing that today. What a great view, and being able to show, what the possibility and the potential is, to our audience out there. So I'm so glad you could be here today, and thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience before we move on to our main?
I'm excited for Emma's segment because I got a preview and it's really, really good.
Oh, yeah, I'm super, super excited about it too. Lori, thank you again. You did an incredible job. Thank you for sharing that information with our audience out there. Hit the heart button, hit the like button. And then I'm so excited. We're going to bring Emma on with Oracle, and let's talk about Emma's journey. This is going to be a great one. Emma, how are
you? Hello. I'm good. Gosh, that was a real picking up. I really hope I can live to expectations.
We got you here on walk-up video and everything. Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Never had one of those before.
Yes. We're so excited you're here with us today. Thank you so much for joining the show. And obviously, I got a little bit of a preview prior to us hopping on, but I can't wait for Emma to share this story with you. It's one that many organizations, across the globe have been dealing with. I think some companies like Oracle are maybe a little bit further in how they're managing, this type of population, whereas other companies may still be looking for solutions. So I'm so excited to hear everything we're talking about today. So Emma, I thought maybe if it was all right for our audience out there, maybe tell us just a little bit about yourself and sharing your journey with Oracle's International Remote Working Program over the last few years.
Okay, so I've been with Oracle in the Global Mobility team now for a very scary nearly 14 years. Yes, I've been in our EMEA team. I'm based in the UK, and I've been doing all aspects of global mobility. I've been involved in assignments, permanent transfers, relocations, immigration, and latterly remote working. We have a program at Oracle that's developed over the years from a simple guideline that existed pre-COVID to what I refer to as an all singing, all dancing corporate policy that we have now in the post-COVID era. And I'm really excited to tell you all about how we have been managing our remote working program and our employee population over the last few years.
I am too. This is going to be a spicy conversation. So buckle up, everybody. Let's get ready. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that a little bit. So when you talk about managing this international remote work at scale, what is the core tension that large global organizations face between employee flexibility and compliance?
I think that's the actual tension itself, to be honest. Company needs and wants compliance, and employees want flexibility and want to be able to go and work from anywhere, whenever and however they like, that suits them. And I think finding that balance is the important thing that we can do as an HR profession, as a mobility organisation, to balance that need between employees' needs and their wants and their flexibility and their personal situations and the needs of the company for them to be in a particular place at a particular time that's why we hired them in that location, right? And also then the compliance requirements that come along with that.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. It's finding that right balance, because still ultimately there's the organization. They have their key set of risk and guidelines and guardrails that need to be, adhered to. But then there's that talent acquisition piece and, taking care of the employee. And like you said, offering that flexibility. So it's going to be really interesting for our audience to hear how Oracle's balanced that out with this specific program, because, I think what you could probably share with the audience out there too. And if anybody has questions, y'all can raise those up too. How would you frame the primary philosophy that guides Oracle's approach to handling international work requests? Because obviously we just talked about the compliance and the flexibility. So how has that happened within your organization?
So as a guiding philosophy of the program, I think the way we can frame it is that it's about giving employees that flexibility, allowing them to work within reason from anywhere for a period of time, but maintaining that level of control and having that those guardrails that allow us to be able to be compliant with different laws, different rules, different jurisdictions, etc., and to do that in a structured way that allows fairness with all employees, so that they can work as needed and continue to do their job whilst they are fulfilling their personal needs and requirements.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it was interesting because, that approach and how you looked at it, the philosophy behind it, but then we talked about this a little bit is, Oracle originally had utilized some basic guidelines. This is pre-pandemic. So you guys had some basic guidelines for this type of program, but then the events of COVID-19 happened, right? What accelerated this from the basic guidelines to your permanent framework? Because that was a really interesting story. And I think sharing that with the audience, they're going to love to hear this, because I know I enjoyed it.
So we as an organization have a lot of expats globally. And when the pandemic hit, we, as I think probably many people can relate to on this call, had employees who just went. They went back to their homes. They wanted to go, if they were young, they wanted to go back and be with their parents. If they were split from their families, they wanted to just be with their families. They wanted to not work in a shared house in their kitchen. They wanted to have a proper space. And it was an uncertain time, and people didn't want to be away from their loved ones for a potentially protracted period of time. So we hit COVID-19 and our employees went everywhere. And then we had to bring them back. And as I think I used the term earlier, we almost had that kind of genie out of the bottle kind of situation where employees who had always been working from an Oracle office, from particular locations, and that was the norm, suddenly found that they could do their job with their laptop from another country, and that worked out very nicely for them. Thank you very much. And so they wanted to be able to continue doing that and have that flexibility. And we've all had the conversations over the last few years, in I think every forum that we've ever been in about employees being able to work remotely and digital nomads and that opportunity. And so we had to kind of almost sort of come up with something that would allow these employees to be able to, in the future, continue to work remotely, but make sure that we had the compliance in place. What happened during COVID was expensive for us as a company. It wasn't always 100% compliance. We were on the back foot. We were very reactive. We weren't able to be proactive because the events happened as they happened. And what we've needed to do now is to make it so that we don't get in that situation again, where we have something that allows an employee to legitimately spend time from another country should they meet the requirements of the policy.
Yeah, and I think that that was really interesting too, because Oracle has a very big footprint, and we talked about that a little bit. So, but when this happened, you had these basic guidelines that were sitting there. So Oracle already had a program like this pre-pandemic, which I thought was interesting, number one, because I'm not sure how many companies really allowed any type of remote working. Although I don't think it was like a well-advertised benefit at that time.
Yeah.
Maybe your recruiters did. So potentially.
Yeah, no, it was very limited, and it was something that we would work with in conjunction with HR. So, you'd get a hand up saying there's an employee that's got a particular situation, and is there a way that we can kind of assist them and help them with that? And then we'd be able to say, oh yes, we have this temporary remote working policy. Let's see if we can make this work and get the approvals and so on and so forth.
Right.
And then what we did after COVID was we just really fleshed that out and made that into a policy that is sitting on our intranet and is available. It is not something that is advertised. It is not something that is promoted. It is not something that we go out and tell it. All employees have the ability to do this. We don't do that, and we don't consider it a benefit. It is something that we offer to employees, subject to conditions and approvals.
Right, exactly. So, and that was interesting too, from my perspective, and I'm sure from the audience as well. But let's talk about this. So we had these guidelines, but at least you had something, because there was a lot of companies that had like absolutely nothing, not even like a basic guideline when all of this started shaking out. You were able to take that framework, really work on this project, and bring forth, now a true policy where you could manage this, scenario that happened. But as you're going through this process, let's talk about what were the biggest operational challenges your team faced when trying to transition employees back to the home payroll countries, because you mentioned that. So it was like everybody, boom, scattered. Then it was like, okay, we got to find everyone. We have to build this policy. Oh, and by the way, okay, we got to bring them back now to their home payroll countries. So what were some of those challenges after they've been extended over those periods of time? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I would say that the two were slightly different programs. So we built the policy almost in parallel with what we were doing with bringing people back to their payroll countries. But we were really, we almost kind of formed a task force. It was very much, mobility and HR and legal and really kind of working together to work out how we could get people back and when we could get people back and what restrictions were still in force at particular times. We probably went through, there were, some outliers who were probably still out way into sort of 2022, almost into 2023 for various reasons. But the majority of people we were able to get back kind of by the end of 2021. But yes, it was a concerted effort to work with the business, to work with other HR groups, and to almost kind of highlight to people we had to get tax costs and things like that, to really sort of say these people need to come back. We need to bring you back, and then once you're back, then we can look at whether you can apply under the new policy for a new remote working requirement. But we had them as two separate projects, really, creating the policy and bringing those that had left because of the pandemic back to where they needed to be.
Right. But y'all have a big footprint anyway. Didn't you say y'all have you're in 140 countries?
Something like that, yeah. It's big.
So, I mean, but still trying to get that many employees and get everyone back and run two projects at one time, kind of in tandem. There had to have been a lot of different lessons that you learned, because here you are, you've taken over this, you've been with the company for 14 years. That's incredible. You've really just done a lot of great things with them. And now you have this opportunity to really formulate, something for the future. So what type of lessons, how did those specific lessons help you structure the current policy to ensure international remote work became a legitimate and compliant process?
So it was, I will say I wasn't, I was more on the bringing people back project rather than on the development of the policy project. And then I kind of got more involved in it later on once the policy was sort of there. So I can't take a lot of credit for the development of the policy itself. But as a team, as an organisation, I think we were really sort of, learning from the demographics of the employee population that had gone during the pandemic, the reasons why people were going, the reasons why people were staying, the reasons why, the flexibility, what was going on just generally in the industry at the time.
Yeah.
And really sort of understanding, whether we as a company, whether other companies, whether, what was the future of work and remote work and working from home versus working from an office. And all of that kind of was all built into looking at the flexibility and how we could manage this. And as an organization, I think we're lucky in that we have a lot of internal expertise from an immigration perspective, from a tax perspective. We have internal security teams that we could really leverage, and then, working with our employment legal teams to be able to build a framework for a policy that was able to be so broad that we could offer something that was really, ahead of its game, I think, in terms of what was out there in the rest of the industry, and go from there, really.
Well, that was great because you were able to use your experience, really formulate and shape, how this was going to look, not only for the present and solving, for this scenario of trying to get all these individuals back where they needed to be, but really putting forth a future-proof type program, that may need to be tweaked as we continue to go on. But can you maybe talk us through, outline the baseline operational rules of Oracle's 90-day remote working policy? Can you talk a little bit about that for our audience? What that looks like?
So an employee has to have 12 months service with the company prior to being able to submit a request. It is capped at 90 days over a rolling 12-month period. The days can be taken all in one go, or they can be split out through the year, so they can have multiple trips, but they can only go to one location, and they can, and then they have to meet tax eligibility criteria, immigration eligibility criteria. They've got to have the right to work in the country that they want to go to, or the ability to get the right to work in the country that they want to go to. They won't be sponsored by the company. And if there's any costs to the company, in majority of cases, those cases won't, those requests will get denied. We're looking at a cost neutral program. This is for the personal benefit of the employee and not for the company.
Right. But we talked about that too. So we talked about the 90 days because, I think that's kind of become, the rule, I would say, with a lot of organizations when they're looking at some type of remote working policy and allowing their employees to do this, and whether they take it all at one time or whether they split it up. But that 90 days is also inclusive of personal time outside of the country as well, right?
Absolutely, yes. So we're looking at, employees' physical presence in the country. So the overall amount of time that they're allowed. So from, and I think this was really driven by our corporate tax team, who were comfortable with employees, comfortable being, an operative word when it comes to corporate tax, but that was the limit of which that they would be most comfortable with across the board, of employees spending an overall amount of time in another country if work was going to be part of that time. So it's not just about work days. It's not just about I can go and spend 3 months in another country and then I can use all my vacations, stay for another 2 months, and then I can be gone for half the year. No, we're really clear, and we're very we're quite strict on this, that it includes all of the time that they're going to be in that country over that year. So they have to work their time around that, and they have to declare their vacation as part of their request to go and work.
Right. Because that can trigger a compliance issue. We've talked about that a lot on the show over the past few weeks. Countries are getting smarter. They're using AI. They're becoming, very technologically savvy, and they're able to track these individuals even better and faster and more accurately than they ever have before. So, I mean, I can see why that completely makes sense. You know, and with everything changing, and this isn't just like a US thing, but rules and laws are changing so fast, it seems on a global basis, that it's triggering companies to have to, you know, react and stay on top of these compliance rules to keep the company compliant.
Absolutely.
But also, you know, for the employees as well, because there could be events that are triggered. And you already mentioned it, that, you know, this is like a net zero type program to Oracle, right? Like there's no cost being incurred. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our employee requests are reviewed internally by ourselves in mobility, or at least by an HR professional. We're looking at the immigration side of things. We're looking at the tax side of things. We have an internal tax team who will review all of our cases as well. And anywhere where there's a potential tax cost to the company, we will mitigate that. So if it's a case of, you know, from a tax perspective, let's say, if they want to go for 90 days, then there'll be a cost to the company because of the lack of social security treaty or a lack of tax treaty, or we don't have an entity in that country. But we can allow them to go for maybe a shorter amount of time. So let's say cap of 30 days, then we can allow them to have that request for that shorter period of time. But then we, you know, so that the 90 days isn't a 90 days for everybody, it's maximum of 90 days.
Okay.
And again, when we're looking at immigration, we don't sponsor work permits for remote working requests. So the employee has got to have an immigration status that will allow them to work. So they've got to be a citizen or a permanent resident, or be eligible for a digital nomad visa, or have a status in their own right, dependence permit, for example, that allows them to work in that country. So we'll review that and we'll make a determination as to whether that can happen or not. If they've not got an immigration status, if there isn't something explicit in the tourist visa rules, for example, that would allow them to work, and it requires sponsorship, then we don't go ahead with that request, because we're not paying out to allow somebody to go and have a personal trip to another country.
Right, exactly. So in essence, basically, they, you know, it's on the employee. They've entered this request, which we're going to talk about that in a second, because I thought that was really cool, something you brought up. So we'll share that with the audience. Cliffhanger for everyone. But they put in this request, but it is the responsibility of the employee to make sure that they meet basically the foundational criteria regarding any of their work authorizations, making sure that they're compliant, making sure they have the right visas in order to be able to travel to that country. Is that
absolutely correct? Yes, absolutely. We're
and
not going to do that for them. We might help them, we might guide them in the right direction and say, actually, you need this type of permit, you need a digital nomad visa to go work in this country. And then we'll say to them, go and get it. When you've got it, apply again, and we'll take a look at it. But we're not going to do it for them. We're not going to use our immigration council to do it for them. We're not going to spend money to do this for them.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because you do have a system in place that's managing this, because you have a lot of these requests. Like, I don't know if you can share it or not, but it's a lot, everybody, a lot.
Yeah.
So like thousands and thousands that come through. But you guys, Oracle, actually your internal team built a system, right?
We did. We are very, very blessed and very lucky to have an amazing internal IT team that agreed to build us a system. So where we went live with this policy back at in 2021, at the end of the pandemic, and we were managing these requests manually. Everything was coming through by email, and we were doing, coordinating all of the reviews with all of the different teams by email. We were requesting the approval, so it goes up to quite a high level of approval within the line of business. It's got to be senior vice president has to approve each and every request, and we were coordinating all of that by email. All of the change of dates, if people change their dates, of their travel dates, everything was being managed by email. and we were using our internal mobility database to kind of track the cases. And we needed something a bit more sophisticated to manage these cases, to manage the requests, and to manage all the different moving parts. So we built an internal system, and it does everything. So the employee will initiate the case in that system. It will be reviewed by all of the different reviewers in the system. So tax have access to it, our security team has access to it, we have access to it, we can review everything. And the approval workflow goes up through that system. It sends notifications out, some of which are manual, some of which are automated, and it manages each step in the process. And then it manages their travel as well. And they can update and amend their travel dates in the system and get approvals and stuff. All in one place. So everything is in that one-stop shop.
And that took about 18 plus months to build, right?
So from conception and getting the business approval through to development and going live, I would say probably about 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversation about this behind the scenes, everybody, but we were basically talking about it because, we know that a lot of internal teams, when it comes to getting support from their HR, tech teams, it can be sometimes difficult because they have, higher priority projects, or your project may get pushed. So it's incredible that you were able to do that. And the company was behind it. They saw that there was this huge need, and they were willing to put those resources forth for you to be, have that built, but then we talked about that there are some clients that, and organizations out there that may look at something, that they don't have to build or that can be done. And, I know Benevo has that, and many, other platforms do as well, but, it's a great situation to be in. And, probably one that you can share a lot with our Changemaker group of how you went through that process and what made the best sense, and sometimes it's easier to do an outsource model versus an in-build. So I thought that was really unique that we talked about that, because it was incredible also to understand that, you talked about your security team. So there's a lot of different people involved in this process. It isn't just that the request comes in and then the business line manager goes, okay, you can go. No, there's a full review. And I thought it was interesting when it talked about your international security team and how they successfully automated 99% of their intellectual property and security reviews. So,
Absolutely, yeah.
You do that. That's crazy.
So we were able to work with the security team to really identify what their standard criteria was for being able to review these and to provide the different responses and the different assessments based on the employees' job role, their access to source code, country that they were going to, whether there's an office in that country or not. And we were able to create standard questions that the employee could answer. We were also able to pull information such as job codes out of our HCM system, which talks to our current system and to our remote working system. And we were able to then map all of that out so that, for the most part, the security review is automated. And there are few scenarios, few cases where the security team want to take a look on a manual basis, and they will look at the case and provide a manual review. But for the most part, they were able to standardize their reviews and give a standardized response. And that's all built into the algorithm in the system, and then it pings that out. But we weren't able to successfully do that with our other reviewers. And I think that's probably going to be your next question, Meredith.
It was. You knew it was coming.
I did. So we have built-in facility for automation for immigration reviews, for tax reviews. But at this current point in time, the program is too complicated. The needs and the country combinations are too complicated, too complex to be able to successfully automate all of those workflows and have all of those reviews done. Now, again, as I was saying behind the scenes, we built the system in 2022, 2023. So this is really before the advent of AI, and I can really see in the future that there would be a way that we could potentially use AI to take more of that manual processing and that manual review away, but that, you know, the standard automations that existed at the time we built the system weren't really capable of doing that. We tried it with the mobility reviews, we tried it with the immigration reviews, and we actually went back to doing a fully manual review because we found that there were nuances that the system, although we built in a really robust set of criteria for the automation, there were nuances that the system couldn't pick up, that just by having a human look at all the different pages in the application, we can pick things up that the system couldn't do. And in the future, I think AI can do that work for us as well.
Yeah, I think it's coming. Yeah,
absolutely.
But what was really interesting as well, the tax team is still manually reviewing. Is that right?
Yeah, they are. They're manually reviewing all of these thousands of requests that we get a year, bless them, and making an individual assessment based on the answers the employees have put in to their form, the information that they've provided, information about their previous travel, and so on and so forth, because we get them to put all that in there as well. What have they done over the last 12 months? And so that tax can really make a determination there. And again, we tried some automation with on the immigration side, and we just decided to pull that back and reverse that and put that back into a fully manual process as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you know, the amount of detail that's gone into this program, you know, and what you're doing to have it available, but infrastructure wise, you know, for the company, it's just an incredible story. And I know we're kind of winding down on our time. It went so fast. Emma, you're so great. Like I was like I'm getting so like into the conversation. I forget we have a whole audience out there that's watching the clock.
Me too. I hope I haven't bored you, everyone.
But before we got a little bit of time left, not much, but before we I don't know if anyone has any questions. If you've got questions for Emma, come on, let's get them out there. But I do want to ask you, you know, and I said I was going to ask, I did tell her I was going to ask this question, but what's your best advice for those out in our audience that are still, you know, dealing with this type of program? You know, what would you tell them? I mean, you've walked it, right? You've lived it and you're still living it every day, but what's your best advice for our audience? What could they take away from it?
You've got to find what works for you as a company. We've been able to build quite a big program because we are a big organization and we have a lot of internal expertise. We haven't had to go out to external companies and incur lots of costs. So that allows us to be a lot more flexible with what we've been able to do. I know that's not always something that everybody can do. So you've got to find what works for you guys in terms of what you can do as a company, what meets the needs of your business, what meets the needs of your employees, and but have a program, have something formal in place. Trying to navigate these waters without a policy, without something that you can point to that says, this is why we're doing it, this is what we're doing, and this is, you know, this is the same for everybody, whatever part of level of the organization you're in. I think that then becomes really difficult to navigate. So having something, whether it's a guideline, whether it's a policy, whether it's something, but write it down and have something, because the employees will not take no for an answer without it, in my experience.
Yeah, they probably won't. I'm sure in a lot of people's experience. And I saw Frazine's question. So Frazine, I hope we answered your question. But welcome back, everyone. Emma, thank you so much. What a great conversation. I so enjoyed it. Lori, Julia, Tally, Y'all are amazing. Thank you for always being
Next
here.
week,
Yeah,
we're
next
gonna
week.
have
Brian.
We're going to have Karen Hale, and yes, hosted by Brian. Meredith, thank you so much. You did amazing. You were great as a host. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Join us next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Be
you.
happy, be well, be kind.
Bye.
We'll see you next week.